Imagine being the absolute quietest kid in your school, constantly overlooked, battling crippling social anxiety every single day, and feeling like you absolutely do not belong anywhere in the world. Now, imagine taking that exact same terrifying, isolating feeling, writing it down on a piece of notebook paper, and using it to build a massive, multi-million-dollar independent empire. We are constantly conditioned by society and the entertainment industry to believe that the only way to achieve massive mainstream success is to be perfectly polished, incredibly extroverted, and aggressively willing to conform to whatever is currently trending. We are taught that the misfits, the introverts, and the quiet kids in the back of the classroom are destined to fade into the background. But what happens when someone violently shatters that entire psychological framework? What happens when a young, highly sensitive artist realizes that the very insecurities she was bullied for are actually the exact ingredients needed to connect with millions of people across the globe? This is the incredible, unprecedented story of a young woman who completely bypassed the traditional, highly manipulative gatekeepers of the music industry. By fiercely protecting her absolute authenticity and refusing to change who she was, she transformed her deepest personal traumas into an unstoppable movement. This is the untold story of Sophie Pecora's incredible rise from a misunderstood teenage outcast to a fiercely independent, highly successful voice of a generation. To truly understand the massive scale of her eventual independent triumph, we have to look back at the incredibly quiet, isolated origins of her artistic journey. Long before the blinding lights of global television stages, the viral trending pages, and the massive influx of streaming revenue, there was simply a terrified teenager sitting alone in her bedroom. For a young girl battling severe, suffocating social anxiety, the incredibly chaotic environment of a standard middle school or high school is an absolute daily psychological nightmare. Unable to easily verbally communicate her intense internal struggles or easily form traditional social connections, she desperately needed a safe outlet to process her incredibly heavy emotions. She found that absolute sanctuary in the form of a simple acoustic guitar and a notebook filled with raw, unfiltered spoken-word poetry. When she initially began recording herself and posting those vulnerable videos onto YouTube, it was not part of a highly calculated, heavily funded marketing strategy to become a wealthy pop star. It was a vital, necessary coping mechanism. She was essentially throwing digital messages in a bottle out into the vast, unpredictable ocean of the internet, desperately hoping that someone, somewhere, would understand exactly what she was going through. She was fully embracing the label of the misfit, documenting the agonizing pain of being a social outcast with a level of brutal honesty that is completely absent from heavily produced, mainstream corporate pop music. That raw, incredibly visceral authenticity eventually acted as a massive, uncontrollable spark that ignited a global television phenomenon. When she bravely stepped onto the intimidating stage of America's Got Talent and earned a highly coveted golden buzzer, her deeply personal bedroom sanctuary was instantly broadcasted to millions of living rooms around the world. But that initial taste of viral television fame was only the beginning of a much larger, far more complicated journey. While the massive television exposure provided her with an unprecedented, highly valuable platform, it also immediately attracted the predatory attention of the traditional corporate music machine. The moment a young, highly recognizable artist goes viral, the major record labels swarm in, desperately waiving massive, highly restrictive contracts in an attempt to completely purchase and control the sudden momentum. For a teenager who had spent her entire life feeling completely invisible, the sudden, overwhelming promise of manufactured mainstream superstardom and immediate financial wealth must have been incredibly tempting. But this is exactly where her story aggressively diverges from the tragic, highly predictable reality television playbook. In a massive, unprecedented display of professional maturity and fierce artistic integrity, she made the incredibly brave decision to forcefully reject the toxic, creatively bankrupt corporate route. She realized with absolute, terrifying clarity that if she signed away her creative rights to a boardroom of older, out-of-touch executives, they would instantly attempt to heavily sanitize her gritty authenticity. They would have aggressively stripped away her raw, spoken-word poetry, forced her into highly manufactured, generic pop anthems, and completely destroyed the very essence of the quiet misfit that her original fans had fallen in love with. By actively choosing to walk completely away from the heavily funded, highly manipulative mainstream establishment, she took a massive financial and professional risk. She intentionally chose the grueling, highly uncertain path of the completely independent recording artist, prioritizing her absolute creative freedom and her mental health over the artificial, glittering promise of a corporate-sponsored career. Having successfully severed any potential ties with the highly restrictive corporate machine, she fully committed herself to becoming the sole architect of her own digital empire. She made the brilliant, highly strategic decision to aggressively utilize the modern digital landscape to establish a direct, entirely unfiltered line of communication with her deeply dedicated fan base. Without a massive record label taking a huge percentage of her earnings or dictating her every single artistic move, she completely transformed her independent status into a highly lucrative, entirely self-sustaining business model. By masterfully leveraging the global reach of YouTube, TikTok, and various independent streaming platforms, she effectively cut out the traditional media middlemen entirely. Every single stream, every piece of independent merchandise sold, and every direct fan interaction contributed to a rapidly growing, incredibly profitable independent enterprise. She proved to the entire entertainment industry that an artist no longer needs a massive corporate marketing budget or the toxic blessing of a radio executive to successfully generate millions of dollars in independent revenue. She turned her quiet bedroom into a highly functioning global headquarters, maintaining absolute, unyielding control over her own master recordings, her publishing rights, and her overall public narrative. But the true secret behind her staggering independent rise is not just incredibly savvy digital marketing. It is the profound, deeply emotional psychological connection she has carefully cultivated with her audience. The millions of followers she has amassed are not simply casual, fleeting pop music fans. They are a massive, fiercely loyal army of outcasts. By consistently refusing to compromise her vulnerability, she effectively created a massive, safe digital haven for an entire generation of misunderstood youth. When she releases a new, entirely independent track detailing the heavy realities of anxiety, depression, or social isolation, she is directly validating the silent struggles of millions of teenagers across the globe. She completely redefined what it actually means to be a successful influencer in the modern era. Instead of projecting a fake, highly curated lifestyle of unattainable perfection, she loudly and proudly projects her flaws, her fears, and her deepest insecurities. Her massive financial and cultural success is the direct result of radical empathy. She essentially monetized the truth, proving that genuine human connection is infinitely more valuable and highly sustainable than any heavily manufactured corporate pop persona. Looking at the incredible, highly triumphant reality of her current independent career, her unprecedented journey serves as a massive, unavoidable wake-up call to the entire traditional entertainment industry. Her entirely self-sufficient, fiercely independent trajectory establishes a powerful, completely revolutionary blueprint for the future of the music business. She bravely survived the brutal social isolation of her youth, navigated the highly manipulative waters of the reality television machine, and ultimately proved to the entire world that true, authentic artistry cannot ever be permanently contained within a sterile boardroom script. She completely flipped the script on every single person who ever made her feel like she was not enough. The terrified, highly anxious young girl who bravely recorded her deepest secrets in her bedroom has completely transformed into a brilliant, uncompromising, and fiercely independent CEO of her own destiny. Her inspiring rise from a teenage misfit to an independent millionaire is a stunning, undeniable testament to the absolute power of embracing exactly who you are. She has definitively proven that the very traits the world might try to bully out of you can ultimately become your greatest, most profitable superpower. We strongly urge you to remember her extraordinary story the next time you feel like you do not fit into the crowd, because sometimes standing entirely alone is the first necessary step to building an empire.